Hello everyone! In this demo we are going to look at piercing, and I'm going to use our test on filing and piercing as an example. So this is what I need. So this square, the small square inside the big square, is pierced. So that's what we're going to talk about. Please don't forget to watch the other videos on installing a saw blade in your saw frame and sawing first. That's very important. So, what is piercing? Piercing is sawing out a shape from inside a sheet of metal, like this one. Like sawing and filing, it is one of the basic techniques that you need to know and master, of course. Why would you use this technique? Piercing creates a negative space in your workpiece, and it can be used for many different reasons, practical or decorative. Either way, it opens up, excuse the pun, a lot of possibilities for layering, for incorporating other materials, like plexiglass. So these could be non-metallic materials as well. And it certainly adds up a lot of depth and dimension to a design. This is our project. We need to cut a perfect square measuring 28 by 28 millimeters, and then saw out or pierce a smaller square right in the center. And this one is 10 by 10. Since we cannot saw right from the edge of the big square, we need to drill a hole to insert the saw blade in our workpiece, and then we'll saw out the small square. I have already drilled the hole for this. Use a small drill bit just big enough for your saw blade. It will be quite tiny. Since we won't use the piece we saw out, it doesn't matter where the hole is going to be. The saw blade should already be attached to the top of the frame. Unscrew the bottom nut of the frame to release the blade. You see that here I have drilled a hole near a corner, but not too close to the corner. And now you can brace your frame on the bench pin and your chest and thread the blade through the drilled hole. You need to support the piece to avoid breaking the blade. Tighten the bottom nut on the saw frame to secure the saw blade, and pluck the blade to check the tension. And that's it. You can start sawing out your shape. A safety reminder for you: never put your fingers in front of the blade. They should be on the side or behind the saw blade. Use a brush to remove the metal filings from your work so you can see your scribe line, and so you can cut as close to it as possible. For corners, remember that it is your workpiece that turns. The saw frame doesn't, it only goes up and down. Again, it is safer to use a brush rather than to blow on the metal dust that falls on your work. Otherwise, you breathe the metal filings in, and that's not very good. Let's continue sawing out the shape. And I will speed up the video at this point. We come to a corner and a sharp turn. this is where we are now. You'll notice that the scribe line is on the left of the saw blade. I find it easier that way because I can better anticipate where to saw. Let's speed up the video again. Another sharp turn. Try to stay close to your line. You should be at about 0.5 millimeter to 1 millimeter from the line. Make sure it always remains visible. You're going to need it later when you clean up and you file. Here's another corner where we take a sharp turn. And let's speed the video again. We're coming to the last stretch and we are going to slow down as we are getting close to the end and to the last corner. You need to go slowly to avoid breaking the blade. Almost done. And carefully you remove the small square. We won't be using it. It is too small, so it goes in our scrap jar. And now we unscrew the bottom nut of the frame to release the blade and to remove it from the work. And now we're ready for the next step, where we're going to clean up and file the edges and the corners. You see that the scribe line is still visible, and I will use it as a guide to file the edges and the corners. The opening right now is too small and needs to be filed until it gets to the required 10 by 10 millimeters. The edges need to be perfectly straight and true, and the four corners have to be 90 degrees exactly. To file all these, we're going to use our needle files, which will be small enough to work inside the small square, and we'll use cut number 2. The barrette file is smooth on top and on the sides. Only one face of the file cuts. We'll use the flat needle file, and we'll also use a square needle file. We place our workpiece in the ring clamp, and here I will show you what I'm going to do. So I will start with the flat file to even out this edge, file it down to get closer to the scribe line. I will also make it straighter. I'm trying not to get too close to the other sides because the edges of the flat file could make a dent, so I avoid the corners. You can also switch to the barrette file so you can get a little closer to the corners. Remember, the barrette file only has teeth on one face. The sides are smooth. So you can use it without damaging the other sides. Let's look a little bit more closely. You see that the edge is much straighter and even, and that I filed right to the scribe line. Continue filing the other sides of the cutout square using the same technique. and I would speed up the video again. Let's have a closer look. You can see that the edges that I haven't filed yet look more uneven and rougher, so there is more filing to be done. You see how important it is to pause periodically to check what you've done, to observe. This is how you can really be in control of what you are doing. And you keep switching from barrette to a flat or square needle file, depending on what you need to do. Now, you need to use your calipers to check the measurements. And because we're measuring inside the shape, we use the upper jaws of the caliper. In this example, the opening is 9.8 millimeters. So I need to file a little bit more, 0.2 of a millimeter exactly, to get to the required 10 millimeters. Remember to check often. If you remove too much metal, you cannot put it back on. Again, pause and check. Have a look. Let's have a closer look at the corners. They look slightly rounded. In fact, it is often difficult to get a very crisp corner with just a needle file. So this is how you can get a very crisp corner. You will insert your saw blade into your piece using the same method as before. And now you can use your saw blade as a mini file to refine the corner. Be gentle though, you're not sawing or cutting, you're just rubbing the blade against the edge to shave a little bit of metal. Think of your saw blade as a very thin slice of a file. So that's how you can be very precise and very accurate with your filing in pierced shapes where there is little access. That's it. Happy piercing, and thanks for watching.